Having said that, you were raised by really powerful women. You have become a powerful woman. And on Capitol Hill, people still talk to you about your looks. This is in the book, and I have to bring it up because I think everyone's probably
There's
curious.
There's a whole chapter on appearance. Appearance. It's chapter 8.
Could you talk a little bit about that, especially one comment when one of your supporters said, what I meant, and this was after the birth of your second child, I would have punched
this is the worst
man. I'm
one
just going to say it.
I'll describe it for them.
Please do.
Okay. So the book has a lot of funny quotes because they're funny. So, you know, I'm pregnant, working out in the gym, and some old member of Congress, very old, didn't know who he was, comes up to me and says, "Good thing you're working out because you wouldn't want to get porky." And I'm like, what a jerk. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, I'm in the gym, leave me alone. Anyway, so those are the funnier ones. But the one that was devastating was after I had my baby, I was appointed to the Senate. If you remember, I was appointed in 2009 when Hillary Clinton was elevated to become Secretary of State. And I had a 6-month-old, 7-month-old. Henry was about 7 months old.
He was your second at that
Yeah,
point?
my second.
Right.
And that pregnancy was the funny pregnancy because I was only the 6th member ever in the history of Congress to have a baby. So you can imagine most of my older male colleagues didn't quite know what to say. And so there was a lot of really inappropriate things, like the Southern congressman who's walking me down the middle of the well of Congress and says, "You know, Kirsten, you're even pretty when you're fat." Thanks. You know, I'm 8 months pregnant. That's not a nice thing to say. But these comments, you know, again, aren't the point. So after I have the baby, I am appointed. And so, you know, like a lot of moms, weight doesn't come off immediately. I'm not, you know, some actress or famous model that you did the same size for you were before you had the baby. It just wasn't that way for me. And so I'm in the Senate dining room, you know, fancy place. And I'm sitting with him and saying, you know, so what do I need to do to win statewide? You know, I want to be able to get support from labor. I had support when I was, you know, just having these conversations. And he says, "Oh, Kirsten, when I first met you, you were so beautiful, a breath of fresh air. To win this race, you need to be beautiful again." And I'm like, oh. I could have thrown up. I could have melted. I could have done many things. But I needed this man's help. And so I couldn't say what I really wanted to say, which is to go himself. And I couldn't say it. I just couldn't say it because I was like, I'm just going to ignore that he said that. And I'm going to ask another question and move on. But that comment hurt my feelings so much. I mean, it was devastating. I was exhausted. I was so angry that there was, and this wasn't the only comment. This is like, you know, why are people focusing on my looks? Why is that so relevant? Why are my ideas and what I'm going to do as a leader relevant? Why isn't my position on this, that, and the other thing what's relevant? But it really wasn't to these people. They really had strong opinions. And when my friend told me a similar comment, you know, "Do you really want to look this way on the cover of the New York Post?" I launched into him with a bunch of expletives that I included in the book because I could say what I wanted to say. But a lot of times women don't have that ability. And so the reason why I gave these anecdotes and these stories was so that a woman who's reading that book will know she's not alone. Because when her boss or someone says to her something inappropriate or sexist or really ugly, that she can either respond if she thinks that's what's appropriate, ignore it if she wants to, but just know she has the ability to push through, to become partner at that law firm, and then when she does, change the rules and be in charge of the place. And so she has to realize that just because someone tries to undermine you and make you feel less, it doesn't define you, and it doesn't mean that you can't overcome it. It's the comments when you're youngest in your career that are far more hurtful. You know, I included a story when I was just a young lawyer, and I'd worked so hard on this case, months, years. It was endless. And weekends, you know, all weekend long, midnights, vacations canceled, and we were having a celebratory dinner, and my boss gets up to do congratulations, and I'm running real parts of this case, and he's like, "Oh, and let's thank Kirsten for her great work, and don't you just love her haircut? Doesn't she look fabulous?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? My hair?" Like, I was so demoralized at that moment because I felt valueless. I thought, this guy thinks how I look is more important than my work, and how am I ever going to make partner here? Like, it was a punch in the gut. And so those are the stories that, even though Washington likes to focus on who said what to whom, those are the stories that I really thought were most important because those are the stories that I refuse to let affect me.
And those are the stories that can make or break a young woman especially.
Totally. If he had said that in front of other partners, in front of people who didn't know me, it really would have hurt my career. But thank God it was just in front of the other team members, so we all knew I worked my butt off, and they all knew that I had really earned some really significant, gratitude for working so hard. So I didn't worry about it. I was like, this is not going to, I mean, the women who were there, we just all rolled our eyes and like in absolute disbelief. Can you believe he just said that? But it didn't affect me in my career because of the particular audience, but that could affect anybody. And the reason why I bother to talk about it is, how people comment on your appearance in different industries really does have an impact. And in politics, the studies show that when your opponent talks about your looks, whether it's positive or negative, it actually undermines female candidates. They're seen as less credible, less worthy of a vote. And so my opponent used it against me, both positive and negative, in my first campaign. The first slander was, she's just a pretty face, meaning obviously she's too stupid to be in Congress. But the second slander was, use the ugliest picture I can find of her, put a green wash all over it so I look like a crazed witch, and that this is this crazed, power-hungry woman that you definitely can't vote for. Now the good news was, and what I immediately thought during the campaign was it would backfire, and it did, because the women of the district were furious. Why is she using such ugly pictures? That's not fair, that's not nice. And they began to see him as somebody who really was unappealing and not an honest person. So I was able to win that race. Even though it was a very tough race, it was a 2-to-1 Republican district, right. And I still prevailed because I was willing to stand up, fight for what I believed in, and stay focused on why I was running. And he was really, his candidacy was affected negatively because he chose to run a negative campaign.